level. Tune in. The Black Hair Party presents the Real Talk. So we talk about friendship, love, and purpose. I am your host, JRX 36. Juju boy. XI. This is an All Ages Alliance production. Another box in the box. We about to travel through time. Ladies and gentlemen, let's go. Hop in the time machine. Dun, 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 dun. Hold up. Here we are. Box in the box. Tune in. The Black Hair Party presents the Real Talk Chapter, where we talk about friendship, love, and purpose. I am your host, JRX 36. IUV. JRX 37. This is an All Ages Alliance production. Climb up, buddy. Climb up. Come on. He's my best friend. I want to introduce you to my best friend. Say hi, say hi, best friend.
38.
Juju boy, 38. All right. Juju, you are my best friend, right? Oh man, right or wrong? Right. Get off me. What's happening? What happened? Here I am. Hey, look, it's time for me to hop in this box. I gotta hop in this box. Hold up. Let's hop in this box. Hold up. Look. Come on. Let the old man coming off. Come on, man. Come on, man. Come on, young blood. Where my face go? Where is it? My face. Where'd it go? What I do? Whoa, Juju boy. All right. Look, we about to hop. Wait a minute. Here it is. We about to hop in this box and go back in time, ladies and gents. Let me share my screen. Bang. Hey. Whoa. Wait a minute. Let's go full. Wait a minute. Let's go playback. 2-5. Okay. Let's get a hold of this now. Can you please? Wait, baby, wait. Tune in. The Black Hair Party. Tune in. The Black Hair Party presents the Real Talk Show.
We talk about friendship, love, and purpose.
Repeat. Tune in. The Black Hair Party presents the Real Talk Show.
We talk about friendship, love, and purpose. Right here, it's your host, JRX 36, and this is an All Ages Alliance production.
Yeah. Hey. So I'm already in the box. Quite frankly, I've been in the box. I had scrolled all the way down, like around this time to like May 30th timeline. And then I clicked on something, and when I hit back, it took me back to the beginning. So the couple minutes that I spent scrolling was for entertainment purposes that you don't get to enjoy. Maybe next time I'll record myself going. But till then, we about to sip on some kombucha. Oh, baby. Sipping on that. Not have to move. Sip on some kombucha. And travel through time. Here we go. Obey. Neo-neurotype. Eonetian virtue ethicist. So what are we talking about? I see atom, Eve, X marks the spot on the apple. That's what I see. I see an apple, I see Adam, I see Eve, I see an X that marks the spot. I see nerve, I see EIOS, I see neo-now. And in this neo-now, we got the Eonetian virtue ethicist. So what is an Eonetian virtue ethicist? First off, let's find out what is a virtue ethicist. So that then we can discover what an Eonetian virtue ethicist is. Now, a virtue ethicist is Bessie. Give me that towel.
The baby.
Are you able to read? I'll read it. Virtue ethics. According to the bbc.co.uk, virtue ethics teaches an action is only right if it is an action that a virtuous person would carry out in the same circumstances. A virtuous person is a person who acts virtuously. A person acts virtuously if they possess and live the virtues. All right, virtue ethics. We're gonna read it off of Wiki. Wiki. Virtue ethics, also ethics from the Greek, is a class of normative ethical theories which treat the concept of moral virtue as central to ethics. Virtue ethics is usually contrasted with two other major approaches in normative ethics, consequentialism and deontology, non-consequentialism, which make the goodness of outcomes of an action consequentialism, and the concept of moral duty, deontology. All right, and it continues. We'll leave it at that. So what is an Eonetian virtue ethicist? So it is a virtuous person who acts virtuously. A person acts virtuously if they possess and live the virtues. So an Eonetian virtue ethicist is a virtuous person that possesses and lives the virtues that are in alignment with that of the virtues of an Eonetian. So what are the virtues of an Eonetian? Think of virtues.
Temperance, humility, courage, compassion.
So here's a list of virtues from A to U. I'll go ahead and just read them. Assertiveness. And I let my future self handle it. So what does handling mean? My future self about to pause after every word and we about to go through it. You don't necessarily got to go through it all at once, but this is one of those videos that we could do over and over and over and over, over and over and over and over, over and over and over and over. All right, let's get. So before we go into, before we go into the virtues and their definitions. Hey, buddy. We're going to go over this video brought to us by The Philosophical Life. Let's go.
People with ADHD save 10 hours studying with this Chrome extension. But no, by all means, go ahead, skip the ad, save a
Get to start seeing how virtue ethics is unique in comparison with other ethical theories, let's look at a couple of cases as mentioned by Louis Pojman in this excellent introductory ethics text, How Should We Live? Pojman asks us to consider the following two cases. First, we have a person named John, and he hears that 100,000 people are starving in Ethiopia. He feels deep sorrow about this, and then he sends $100 of his hard-earned money to a famine relief project in Ethiopia. Let's contrast John with Joan. She hears the same news, but doesn't feel anything. However, out of a sense of duty, she sends $100 of her hard-earned money to a famine relief project in Ethiopia. So what do you think right away? Who is more moral, if anyone? Is it John or Joan? Keep that in mind, and then let's continue. Jack and Jill each have the opportunity to embezzle $1 million from the bank at which they work. Jill never even considers embezzling. The possibility is not an option for her. Jack, on the other hand, wrestles valiantly with the temptation, almost succumbs to it, but through a grand effort of will, finally succeeds in resisting the temptation. Who, if anyone, in each of these cases is more moral? So to begin locating virtue ethics and how it's unique from other ethical systems, let's just consider the big three views of moral theory. The first view is deontological. That is, it's duty-based. The right act will be the act that conforms to duty. Here you can think about Kant's ethical system, where the right act is the maxim, is in alignment with the rule or the maxim that comes out of the moral law, and you do an act that has moral worth and that is worthwhile when you perform an act that aligns with the moral law, and you do it for the reason that the moral law requires it. So you can see it's just shot through with duty and doing what's required, and there are a lot more details to it, but that's a rough sketch. The second big category, compared to deontological, is what's known as teleological. So telos is end or goal. A teleological theory is a theory that focuses often on action, and it's about doing the right thing. It's about doing the right act that aligns with the goal you're trying to achieve. So here you can think about utilitarianism, which says that the right act is the act that maximizes the good, well-being. And the right act will be the act that achieves that end. So therefore, it's a teleological system. Virtue ethics, by contrast, is arete. Arete is known as excellence or virtue. It's about te. Arete is known as excellence or virtue. It's about having the right disposition or habit to do the right thing. And that doing, that excellence or virtue, comes out of being the sort of agent that has the virtues. So as opposed to focusing on duties, as opposed to focusing on actions, and doing the right thing, virtue ethics focuses on being the right sort of person. So it's about developing your moral character. Now, the first reason that this is a very attractive theory is that one of the hallmarks of a good moral theory is that it can be practical, it can be applicable, it can help you grow in terms of your morality, in terms of being a morally good person. Now, virtue ethics, since we're focusing on having the right sort of character, we can look at role models from history of people who have exemplified the virtues. Here you can think of people like Gandhi, Martin Luther King Jr., Mother Teresa. People, though they were not perfect, in many areas they exemplified moral goodness for the things they did. They fought for justice, they fought for the poor, they fought for things like love and compassion, things that are morally good. And because of that, we have something to aim at in terms of developing our own moral character. So there's this sense in which we can develop morally by aiming to be like them, like the virtuous person. Now let's get a little more specific with regard to what a morally virtuous person would look like by using an example found in this text that we're looking at today by Louis Pojman. He mentions the example of, in 1941, Father Maximilian Kolbe. He was a Polish friar from Warsaw, and he was arrested for publishing anti-Nazi pamphlets, and then he was sentenced to Auschwitz. There he was beaten, kicked, and whipped by the prison guards. After one prisoner successfully escaped, the prescribed punishment for the remaining people was to select 10 other prisoners who were to die by starvation. As 10 prisoners were pulled out of line one by one, Father Kolbe broke from the ranks, pleading with the commandant to be allowed to take the place of one of the prisoners. He said, quote, "I'm an old man, sir, and good for nothing. My life will serve no purpose," end quote. The 45-year-old priest pleaded. He was taken, thrown down the stairs into a dank, dark basement with the other 9 prisoners and left to starve. Usually, prisoners that were punished like this spent their last days howling, attacking each other, and clawing the walls in a frenzy of despair. But this time, a seeming miracle was heard coming from the death chamber. Quote, "Those outside heard the faint sound of singing. For this time, the prisoners had a shepherd to gently lead them through the shadows of the valley of death, pointing them to the great shepherd," end quote.
Yo, is that not the deepest thing you've heard in a long time? That was just so deep to me, that this man would put himself in harm. He put himself. He expedited his death sentence, so to speak, by choosing to take the place of one of the 10 who were gonna be selected to starve, right? Now, and then not just that, right? Because that's admirable in of itself. But then the next level, as they're starving, he finds the way to manage them, to lead them to death. You know, through that transition, he manages to calm, to soothe, to ease their worries during this difficult, challenging moment. Like, that's just amazing. Like, and then to do that in real life, right? Like, one thing is saying, yeah, I'm about this, I'm about that, but to in real life say, hey, choose me. And then after you get chosen, to have the strength of character to then be able to lead the others, you know, to their death, right? Like, to be able to soothe them. It's brilliant, man. It's brilliant.
The Nazi guards were utterly astounded to hear the men they were killing by starvation at peace with themselves, quietly singing hymns just before they died. To keep one's heart and head in love and courage in the midst of horror and degradation, not letting oneself become degraded, but answering hate with love, that is a miracle of moral heroism. A few weeks later, several SS troopers, along with a doctor and a prisoner who survived to report the incident, entered the basement to remove the bodies.
Can you get the
In the light of their flashlight, they saw Father Kolbe, a living skeleton, propped up against the wall. His head was inclined a bit to the left, he had a smile on his lips, and his eyes were wide open with a faraway gaze, as if seeing something invisible to the SS troopers. A needle injected poison into Father Colby's arm, and in a moment he was dead. The Nazis starved him to death, but not before he had aided the other starving prisoners in facing their own deaths. And that's an end quote. Wow. Super powerful. So that is an example of a virtuous person. In the midst of the worst sort of horror, in the midst of facing death by starvation. I mean, think about it. We are lucky to go 1 or 2 meals without food. You can imagine just being starved to death and knowing there was no end in sight, that you were going to die, and choosing in that moment love. And Father Colby was guiding them toward their inevitable end. And he probably believed that there was another beginning on the other side, and that kept him going, and that helped him help the others get through their final moments while starving to death. Now, you don't have to become a moral saint in order to possess the virtues, but the idea is that all of us, maybe even to a lesser degree, can come to possess the sort of sensitivities that would allow us, when the time comes up, instead of responding with hate, instead of responding with degradation and hurting others, we respond out of love, compassion, patience, and many other virtues that are mentioned. Moral courage. You are continent. That is, you aren't weak-willed. When the temptation comes up, you do the right thing for the right reason. And here's the key: you possess the right feelings. So feelings actually do matter on this theory, and your duty is to develop in that way. But you don't have to become a moral saint in order to be a virtuous person. Now, with this in mind, with this background, let's return to the 2 cases that we started out with. So you remember the first case was John and Joan, and John, he heard that 100,000 people are starving in Ethiopia, and he felt sorrow about this. And then for that reason, he did the right thing. He sent the $100 in out of a sense of sorrow. We can contrast that with Joan. She just did the right thing because it was her duty. Now, in this case, if you're a virtue ethicist, you're going to think that John is more moral than Joan.
Now, I would like to personally identify with a virtual ethicist, and I wouldn't say that I would think that John was more moral because he had an emotion. I think there should be more discussion on that. I understand where he's coming from. However, as a virtual ethicist, I have a relationship with emotions that may be a little bit different than his relationship with emotions, or his understanding of people's relationships with emotions. I don't believe that one needs to feel sorrow and then act in order for that to make a person more morally right. Like if a person out of duty, contributes, I wouldn't say that one makes the other more moral, because each person is responding based upon their own beliefs and understandings. And as an outside third party, I don't necessarily have to have a judgment about who's more moral. They each independently can be considered to be moral, if that makes sense. In my opinion, it's not a requirement to have the emotion in order for it to be moral.
That is, John had the virtues and was moved because of his moral sensitivities to the suffering of people in Ethiopia to do the right thing and donate to charity. Whereas Joan didn't have those sensitivities cultivated. She didn't have the virtue of compassion in that way, but just still out of sort of a cognitive, rational understanding of what's at stake, just did what the moral law required, or what she thought was her duty, which was to give to charity. So she acted from duty, but she didn't necessarily possess the virtues that would spontaneously cause her to donate to charity.
But acting out of duty, to me, is just as moral. Does she have to have the emotions? I don't think that she has to have the emotions for it to be considered more moral or as moral. I mean, they're both moral. I believe that they were both being moral, and sorrow isn't necessarily
Now, Kant would think, for instance, that Joan was the more moral, that her act had moral worth because she acted from goodwill or a will that was in alignment with what the moral law required. Whereas John, he was moved and was sensitive and therefore responded, but that doesn't necessarily mean his act possesses moral worth or is more moral than Joan's, because that's all about sympathy and that's all about the sentiments and feelings. And for Kant, you don't base ethics on feelings and sentiments, even if they're cultivated virtues and sensitivities. Rather, it's just about doing your duty. Now let's look at the other case. The other case, you can probably imagine, follows in similar way. Jack and Jill have the opportunity to embezzle. So you may recall that Jill, she didn't even consider it. So Jill didn't struggle with it. She did the right thing for the right reason, and because she had cultivated a good, moral standing, and she wasn't even tempted to embezzle $1 million. Whereas you have Jack. He wrestled valiantly with the temptation, overcame it, and then finally succeeded in doing the right thing. So again, the virtuous person in this case is Jill, because Jill, it didn't even sort of come into her consciousness whether she should do the right thing or not. She's the virtuous person in this case and just did the right thing sort of naturally. Whereas Jack,
to do the right thing naturally is virtuous, right? It doesn't, to do it out of duty is virtuous. And to do something out of duty is because you feel a sense that that is what ought to be done, and that's the virtue. And I already said it. My opinion is that the emotion in of itself isn't necessarily a requirement for it to be more moral. I think they're both equally moral relative to their respective belief systems.
Jack had to really wrestle with his nature, and he was tortured in a sense over whether he should embezzle the $1 million. And eventually he did the right thing. But because he had to wrestle with it, that shows that he didn't have a disposition to just naturally do the right thing. He had to really wrestle with it. Well, for Kant, because it's about doing the duty, he wants to see the wrestling. That is, it isn't about just doing the right thing because you have the virtues. It's about, you could say that the moral law or the goodwill shines even brighter when you wrestle with things and then you choose, despite the big temptation, to do what the moral law requires or the right thing. So that is just a helpful contrast between virtue ethics and duty-based ethics.
Francesca, love the energy today. Climb in the...
Right, so that was virtue ethics. And now we'll return to the main video and my future self will comment on that. Back to it. Assertiveness. Boom, assertiveness. Let's get it. Let's watch an image of it. Assertive, confident in behavior and style, disposed to or characterized by bold or confident statements and behavior. An assertive leader. Are you an assertive leader? Are you characterized by bold or confident statements and behaviors? Do you practice what you teach? Are you assertive? Yes. Confident in behavior and style. Right? These are all positive words. Your needs, others' needs, and in the middle, in the Vesica Pisces, we have assertive. Between aggressive and passive, we have assertive. Are you assertive? Or are you aggressive? Or are you passive? I could be all of the above. I aim to practice to be assertive. However, I can be aggressive if I need to, or at the very least, I can act aggressive, right? If I need to. And then passive, I could be passive too. In fact, my default setting is just to be passive. Because at the end of the day, right?
Everybody got to go to bed with their own head. At the end of the day, everybody gets the consequences of their belief systems and their choices. So why do I got to be aggressive about getting what I want? Because I know I'm going to get what I want in due time. So if someone else is interrupting that or whatever, I could address it, but I could take a passive approach because I know that ultimately I am going to get that which I deserve, that which I have earned. In the same way that others are going to get what they deserve and or have earned. So I aim to practice to be assertive, not aggressive, not passive. I aim to practice to be assertive, but I can be all three. I can be aggressive or passive, but I prefer to be assertive.
Right? Assertive is the sweet spot. Protecting your thoughts, ideas, and territories while respecting others' rights, feelings, and thoughts. That's assertive.
So let's talk about passive, disrespecting yourself. I understand where you're coming from. Now let me justify the passive behavior or passive engagement with other people. When you're passive, it's possible for people to take advantage of that. It's possible for people to disrespect you because they may perceive that they're getting their way at your expense. So that's what passive can look like or feel like. So it says disrespecting yourself because you're allowing others to encroach beyond the boundaries that you have set for yourself. And I tend to do that. Like I said, because I realize that at the end of the day, everyone's going to get the consequences of their choices and or belief systems. And if I'm in a relationship with you, whether it's I'm a teacher or whatever, partner, relative, etc., if I feel like my boundaries are crossed, I'll say something. However, I don't have to be aggressive about enforcing my boundaries. I don't have to disrespect others to enforce my boundaries. Now, I could say that I'm much more likely to be aggressive towards the people closest to me if I need be. Because at least in a past moment, I expected that they would know how to work with me or how to talk to me, and I know how to talk to them. So I would expect that it would be clear. But if they still encroach on my boundaries, if they still violating my space some way, somehow, then I would be more inclined to be aggressive towards them. Now, disrespectful, I don't know, because I would give the consequence for whatever they did. But it would appear to be aggressive from the outside, but it's really more assertive and reinforcing the boundary. However, a lot of people often are unable to receive criticism or are unable to be accountable, take ownership for their expressions and their actions, and then they get offended when they're held accountable. So where I might call it assertive, they might call it aggressive, and they may feel disrespected. However, I would say that from my perspective, it wasn't disrespect, although in the past it has been, and I have been. However, these days I've been, building momentum on not disrespecting others. So, aggressive is not my default, neither is passive can be considered my default, because when I'm at work, I feel like I'm in service. And while I'm in service, I'm going to be in service and get the job done. I don't believe that anyone is disrespecting me. However, I can see how other people may perceive that some people are disrespecting me because I may not responded in the same way that they would respond given a specific situation. And I wanted to spend this much time on this because it's important. Some people are passive to the point where then they have negative self-talk. So if you're passive and then you're having negative self-talk about the way that you're responding to others, then I would put that in a red zone. Like, that's a problem. Now, if you're being aggressive and you're disrespecting others, I would also put that in the red zone. That's a problem, right? To disrespect yourself or disrespect others is a problem, especially if you're having negative self-talk about it. Now, if you're not having any negative self-talk about your passive actions or your aggressive actions, then very likely is that you being assertive, or you're at ease with being passive and or aggressive. Now, I would believe that it is more acceptable to be passive than aggressive, because aggressive is to other people. You got to figure that out. You got to respect other people. Now, when it's passive and it's with yourself, disrespecting yourself, you got to figure that out too. But at the very least, you're containing your disrespect within yourself. You're not putting it out on others, so you're not having to create negative attention from the people outside of you. Are you assertive? Are you green, yellow, or red? Green is assertive, yellow is passive, red is aggressive. So aggressive disrespects others, passive disrespects yourself. So that's where we are. Assertive. So this is a virtue, to be assertive, to be confident, bold in behavior and style. What is assertiveness? Assertiveness is about standing up for yourself, but also about respecting the opinions and needs of others. When we communicate assertively, we are clear about our opinions and wishes, but we are also open to others. So I'm gonna just read through some more of these assertive slides, and I see one I got my eyes on when I want to go to after this one, and then we'll go to the next virtue. So this is the first virtue, assertive. An honest, direct, and appropriate expression of one's feelings, thoughts, and beliefs. Feelings, thoughts, and beliefs. An honest and direct, appropriate expression. Yep. All right, here we go. Am I assertive? Read the questions and keep track of how many times you answer yes. I am comfortable meeting new people in new social situations. Yes. I am able to say no without feeling guilty or anxious. I know why you're thinking about it, right? Because I want to say I do have a feeling now. Is it guilt or anxiety? No, I don't think it's guilt or anxiety. Maybe guilt, I guess. Well, let's say yes, because let me say I am able to say no without feeling guilt or anxious. Today, I don't feel guilt or anxiety. However, I believe that I have felt guilt about saying no. And then the guilt is, I wouldn't call it a guilt, is that I want people to say yes to me. So I feel that I should say yes to others. So if someone asks me something, I want to say yes. Now, if I have to say no, I could say no. But a part of me would still wish I would have said yes. It doesn't produce anxiety or guilt per se, but if I had to put it in a box, I'd say it'd probably be guilt more so than anxiety. Definitely not anxiety. It'd be more guilt, but only guilt because I just wish to say yes. Because I want other people to say yes to me. There may be a feeling of some sort. Let's see. Now, I could say no. Like, it's easy for me to say no about things that are clear, but if it's something that's within my power to do or something that I can accomplish or do, I want to say yes. I wouldn't want to say no. Now, if there's a reason for me to say no, then I can say no. And that I don't have any issue with saying no if I need to say no. Now, if I have the option and yes is an option, then and I want to, then that's where I would say possibly guilt, but I don't know that I would call it guilt. Well, I always want to be able to say yes. I like the idea of saying, I like to hear people tell me yes, so I like to tell others yes as well. And that's not that I feel guilty or anxious, but I just have a desire to say yes. Now, I do not have a desire to say yes about moving. Now, if it's already boxed up, maybe yes. But I am not a fan of moving. But if it's already boxed up, I think I'm cool with that.
And if I got all day to do it, or like I don't know, I gotta turn it into a workout for me to be cool with it. I can express strong feelings such as anger, frustration, or disappointment. Yeah, I could express them, but it causes me not to feel the anger, frustration, disappointment anymore, because you gotta voyage your way away from that. Hold up. I can express strong feelings such as anger. I can, however, I've made it my life goal to not have those feelings control me. And since those feelings no longer control me, then I don't have the desire to feel anger, frustration. Well, I choose to not have expectations. So not having expectations has removed the frustration and disappointment aspect of it. However, if I needed to express these, I could, but I guess I would feel guilt, I would say. If I feel that I got angry or frustrated, I would feel guilty because I would feel like I failed myself. I feel like, oh, I let that emotion through. I wasn't able to void it before it triggered me. So I would feel some sort of guilt or disappointment if those feelings were expressed. So I can express strong feelings such as anger, frustration. I can, but I don't choose to. And I would do whatever I need to do to prevent from me having to express those strong feelings. So I'd like to catch, and that's what practicing the 18 voids does. It allows me to catch. It allows me to hear the disruptive expression before it triggers me, and then I can void it so that it doesn't trigger me. So then I won't get angry, I won't get frustrated, I won't get disappointed, because when I hear those words that are going to cause anger, frustration, disappointment, I've already voided it. I've already prepared myself to cancel it so that it doesn't trigger me, if that makes sense. It makes sense. When you see these disruptive expressions coming, you void them, So how can you prevent anger, frustration, and disappointment, right? Have no expectation. But can you be in a relationship with someone and have no expectation? Can you? Not everybody could. I can easily, not if you're in a committed relationship. Because if you're in a committed relationship and you got vows, then those vows are basically the expectations of the relationship.
Daddy, this one.
Now, I do believe it is possible to be in a relationship without expectations, but I think that's not for everybody. In fact, that's only for a few.
Where's the shoe?
You want me to open it?
Yeah.
Here you go. Okay. Easily request help and information from others. I agree, Shoot. You can help me, right? Just help me save time. I want to help you save time. You help me save time. Is that not why we're here? Please help me save time, because I want to help you save time. Now, what I could say, when you're not used to having others, when you're not accustomed to have others help, it may be difficult or challenging to figure out how other people can help you. So it's important to visualize whatever it is that you're working on. If you need help, you got to visualize how you need help. You need to mentally or on paper, map out what needs to get done. On paper, you need to describe what needs to get done so that you can be able to ask for the help necessary to accomplish the task. If you don't do that, then you may find yourself doing a lot of the work that you could have delegated to somebody else had you made time to visualize the details so that you can delegate some of those responsibilities to somebody else. Now, the reason I wanted to talk about that a little bit more is that it's important, if you're in leadership and you're aiming or you're seeking to be the best version of yourself, it's important that you're able to visualize how others can help you
on your journey, how others can help you as you pursue your purpose or as you live on purpose. Help from others is crucial. It's help from others could be the difference between sanity and insanity. Some people feel like they lose their minds after feeling lonely for a X amount of time and feeling as if they don't have anyone else that they can ask for help. But a lot of times there are people that'll be more than happy to help if you simply ask them. But when you ask them, you got to know what you want them to do.
I feel capable of learning new things and performing new tasks. When it comes to technology, I feel a certain level of, I don't want to use the word anxiety.
Laziness.
It's not that. The first word that came to my attention was overwhelmed. But what I mean is like, you got to keep up with technology. Like you got to keep up with it. As simple and easy as it may feel, like at least for me, if I'm not using it or practicing whatever, like I lose it. So with technology, you got to keep up with it.
I void that. Let's not call myself lazy, although it's there's lazy in there. But let me fix it a little bit, and let's not call it lazy for a minute. So this is what it comes down to. When it comes to technology, I recognize and understand that technology is something that you have to keep up with. At least for me, if I don't use it, quote unquote, I lose it. So when it comes to technology, because I went for a long period of time without having to use Word, without having to log in my email, without having to, like I was like maybe 3 years without having to do that. I feel like I fell behind. I wasn't able to keep up with technology. So now that I'm getting back into the real world and I'm back being productive now that I'm back being productive, I could say that learning new things online or on computers is something that I have been shying away from. It's something that I have been not desiring to do. And I have continued to put that on Jaden. So Jaden is like my tech guy. So when it comes to feeling capable of learning new things and performing new tasks, the answer is yes. But if it's up to me, I'd rather not. I'd rather not have to learn nothing new or perform any new task. I'd rather delegate anything new. I'd rather just delegate. Now, granted, there are subjects that I'm interested in, like the blockchain, like stocks, like business, and I am more than capable of learning anything like that. But when it comes to technology, like apps and all that, I don't have a desire for it. And that's why I call myself lazy, because I know that I could be making more of an effort to catch on, to get back up to date with technology.
Now it's increasingly becoming easier to keep up with it, but at one point I made a decision to be like, listen, I stopped keeping up with my email, and then it was like I stopped keeping up with my email. That was the beginning of like being done. And I wasn't working for many years because I was homeschooling. So to homeschool is a different mind frame. And I wasn't practicing editing videos. I wasn't practicing making, flyers. And it's like, it feels like a past life at this point. It's been such a while since feels like that was another life. But here we go. We back. I am able to acknowledge and take responsibility for my own mistakes. Yes. Right. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. In fact, I want to say I'm always wrong. Like my goal is to find all the ways of how I'm wrong. That's the goal.
And I've realized that when you take responsibility for your mistakes, others aren't going to be as hard on you if you didn't take responsibility. Meaning that others are more likely to pass judgment on you if you don't take responsibility when you should, then if you do take responsibility, others won't perceive you in the same manner. It's almost like taking responsibility for your mistakes. The consequence is not as intense. In fact, it's like not intense at all, because it's like, okay, well, let's do better, and that's it. You don't got to take it personal.
To be really wrong. Like how
Now, some people, it's like they just take everything so personal, and I get it. It's like people feel underappreciated, and if you feel underappreciated, I can see how you may be sensitive if you make a mistake, because then the persons that you're wishing to appreciate you are choosing to focus their energy on your mistakes rather than all the good that you do. But at the end of the day, you got to figure that out. If you make a mistake, you got to take responsibility, and you ought not expect other people to be appreciative. You should be able to love yourself so much that you don't need outside appreciation for you to do what you should already be doing. However, I get it. Either way, to the degree that you take responsibility for your mistakes, to that degree, your life gets better.
how wrong can I be? Right. And I don't mean, I want to find where I'm wrong, because I want to fix it. I want to correct it. So, and if I'm overseeing, if I'm the leader, right, like, then it's all my fault. I want to take ownership so that I could solve it. Because if it's my fault, then I can solve it. Because in the same way that I can make a mistake, then I can do it right. And I want to do it right.
And I remember this analogy I heard about in sports, is that when a team is losing, you fire the coach. You don't necessarily fire your star player, you fire the coach. Now, teams do move star players. However, the first person to go is the coach if they're truly doing that bad. And I'm a firm believer in that. The coach is the responsible one. You get another coach. Now, it doesn't mean that your players are going to necessarily improve. However, a different coach may bring out more out of those same players.
I can discuss my beliefs without judging those who don't agree with me. Yeah. What allows me, I think, to do this today more than I could have ever have done it is accepting that everybody lives in their own head, right? Like, listen, I know what I believe. I know how happy. I know what I feel as a result of my beliefs, and I live in my own head, right? Like, I'm here just the way that you're there, So for me, I'm happy to be here, and I'm just empathetic about the worlds everyone else carries with them. Like, if anything, I want to, how can I help you save time? Like, you suffering, let me help you create distance between you and suffering. And if you create distance between you and suffering, then you can save time. And what does it mean to save time? It means to find the fountain of youth. If you find the fountain of youth and you partake of it, then you ought live a long time, right? Happily. Right? So then I'm not judging nobody. Everybody gets the consequences of their beliefs. Boom. I am able to express my honest opinion to others, even if they don't agree. Yeah, and there's limits though. When it comes to politics, there are some sensitive topics that you got to be conscious of who you're talking to, because it could elicit all kinds of emotions, anger, frustration, all kinds of emotions.
Right, because the previous statement said, I can discuss my beliefs without judging those who don't agree with me. You may be able to discuss your beliefs without judging others, but others are likely to judge you based on your belief systems if they don't agree with you. So when I read the next one, I'm able to express myself. I'm able to express my honest opinion to others, even if they don't agree. Where I'm going at is that I choose not even to express my honest opinion, and I'd rather just be silent than express my opinion if I know that I'm going to be judged by one of the people listening, and it's not that serious, right? We don't even really got, it's not something to lose a friendship over. It's not nothing so serious where I want to cause another person an emotional disruption. I don't feel that I'm here to convince other people of what they're supposed to believe. I know others may try to change my mind about what I believe. But I will express my honest opinion when asked, but I will also choose to stay out of conversations that I don't need to be a part of if it's going to result in some sort of conflict that's not necessary. And some people might say that's passive, and I'm just saying that's wise, right? Like, what's the point of getting into an argument with someone if it's not that serious? And now I say it's not that serious. What I mean by that is like, my goal is not to change anybody's mind. And if I start expressing myself, or it could change their mind about me, about something that I feel that is not even that big of a deal to have some sort of disruption over. So, and actually, like even today, I chose to stay out of a conversation that I would have liked to express my opinion, but me expressing my opinion would have had much bigger consequences than if I just stay out of it. So I stayed out of it, and that was that. So it's like, I'd rather not talk. Now, what I could say is I stayed out of it because it was at work. And I believe that there are certain conversations that you shouldn't necessarily have at work, unless you have that kind of a workplace where you can discuss all topics without having some sort of consequence. But in real life, there's consequences to having beliefs, and not everyone can hear your belief without judging. So it's important to keep in mind, they say it's chess, not checkers, right? And all that means is life is a game. Checkers is just, you can only move. They all move the same unless you crown. Unless you king, if you a double checker, then you can move differently. Otherwise, everybody just move the same. When it comes to chess, now there's rank, right? And then there's strategy. I mean, there's strategy in checkers, but there's real strategy in chess. But I'm a talker, so I'm a talk. And I do express my honest opinion. Now, do I omit? I guess I could possibly say that I may omit, but I could. So, for instance, I just love to be able to find the compliment, right? Like, I want to find the compliment. Like, I want to find what you did good, not focus on what you did bad. And I think that if you just keep practicing, you're going to get better no matter whatever it is. You're going to get better if you keep practicing. So we don't have to focus on the bad. We just got to focus on making the experience pleasurable so that you can continue to practice, so that then you can get better. Right. And then that's how you a coach. That's how I would want to be a coach. I want to create good, positive experiences. So you want to come back to practice, and then if you practice enough, then, you're going to get better. I tell others when their behavior is not acceptable to me. Yup. Now, there are degrees to this, because the degree that you can solve it. But if they are violating your space, or they're like, violating the voids, and then, yeah, they need to be spoken to. Otherwise, there are ways for you to move and adjust. And some people don't agree with that as a strategy, but to each his own. I believe in adjusting, adapting, right? Why not? Why would I want to be rigid and like experience direct opposition? Like, that doesn't seem to be like the best strategy. I can speak confidently in group situations. Yes, I agree. And only because like I'm just so confident in what I like. If I'm interested in the conversation and I feel confident that I'm aware and knowledgeable of what I'm talking about, like I'm at peace, I'm at ease with what I know about it. And look, I won't be judging others. Like, you gotta live in your own head, but I can speak confidently in front of a group. Now, do I prefer to do that? Nah, I'd rather just be home. I'd rather be drawing. Than having to speak in a group situation. Now, it could be very fun, right? Because there's like, if there's a purpose behind it beyond that one situation or that one moment, then it could be more fun. Like, if you're in the process of telling a story, then that can be fun, just to like hype up the moment, to be able to fully experience, that with that picture that you are attempting to elicit in the minds of the audience, right? I believe my needs are as important as those of others and should be considered. Yes, I could agree, but I could say that I could have room for improvement in moving away from the passiveness, because now this isn't a group, because I guess when I'm engaging others, I want to be in service, because I'm good, right? So I want to be in service. But when I'm by myself, I really
do my part to be conscious of everything I gotta be conscious of so that I could be good, right? So I do consider my needs. Like I think about, I practice to solve the issues. I practice to solve the issues or disruptions that I may be experiencing, you know. All right. So I want to solve my needs, you know, as much as I want to help others solve theirs. And then for me, it started with suffering. I identified suffering as the thing that I want to help people create distance between themselves. Right.
Yeah.
I can assert my beliefs even when the majority disagrees with me. Yeah. If I'm fixed, I'm fixed. If I know what I'm talking about, you know, like we could talk, right? I'm good, but don't get offended. Like if you're gonna get offended, maybe we don't need to talk, right? Like you decide how you want to feel today, right? And then I'm open-minded. So it's like, if, you know, I'm open-minded. I mean, it means I'm open to learning something that I may have not known. I know that it's not uncommon for humans to have blind spots, meaning the areas that they're unable to have clarity in because they just haven't been focused on it. So without unconsciously incompetent. So there are areas that we may be unconsciously incompetent. And I respect that. I call that a blind spot. I respect that. But you know, let's talk it out. I give my facts, you give your facts. I give my opinions, you give your opinions, and that'll be it. But like I said, I'm not here I don't feel compelled to change people's minds. So, you know, however, if I'm in a position where I'm expressing my beliefs and everyone else is disagreeing with me, I'm cool. I feel comfortable. I'm always comfortable. Without focus, there's a lack of clarity. But the more you focus, and the image takes form and it looks in a better definition. I can express anger or disappointment without blaming others. So this goes back to ownership. You know, if you take the lead, right? If you're the leader and you're making yourself responsible for one thing or another, if it's not